Sorry, Sixtus, you have been replaced. Hi guys, my name is Dante and welcome to the anime Underworld. If you like Four Nights of the Apocalypse, you want me to talk more about it, like, share, subscribe, and help the channel expand. I also want to cover more material, albeit Hell of a Boss, Has Been Hotel, Avatar, whatever. If you want me to talk more in my soothing voice, let me know down in the comments. I'm up for pretty much anything. The Seven Deadly Sins has been known for a lot of kings and queens, the Demon King, the Supreme Deity, but most underrated of all, the Fairy King. There have been three Fairy Kings throughout the entirety of the story. The first being Gloxinia, then Dahlia, and of course one of the Seven Deadly Sins himself, Harlequin. But now, Harlequin has found his giant queen, and together they have produced offspring, fairy giant hybrids. So the possibility of a new Fairy King has always been up in the air, and we finally found out who is going to be that replacement. It is Nasiens. Nasiens grew up in a particularly semi-normal childhood. I mean, as normal as you're going to get in a fantasy-based series, especially based on Arthurian legends. Nasiens grew up abandoned in a fairy forest called Echo Gorge, raised by the fairies and a giant and also a human doctor there studying the plant life, and just became such a very supportive grandfather. Adoptive grandfather. Nasiens grew up wanting to become a medic, and even developing a magic called mixed poisons. This allows Nasiens to ingest anything poisonous, or at least anything quote-unquote toxic, albeit from plants, minerals, natural occurrences like snake venom, even magical substances. If Nasiens can ingest it, his body is able to replicate it and recreate it, even mixing in with other poisons for different effects. Can enchant his poisons onto his weaponry, ranging from 2 short swords to even some needles. Nasiens is mostly just the Percival platoon's doctor, being more for healing rather than fighting, but that doesn't mean that Nasiens doesn't know how to throw down. However, there was a mystery to Nasiens. No one knew why, but there was something off about this boy from the fairy forest. And in the recent arc of Four Nights of the Apocalypse, we found it. We found out why. Nasiens is actually a fairy giant hybrid. It's weird. Being raised in a fairy forest with a giant and fairies, no one could have guessed that this kid was actually a fairy giant hybrid. Seriously, what the heck? Well, that's probably because, okay, we're gonna get to that later, but yeah, this came as quite a shock for everyone. But why? Nasiens isn't big and they don't have wings. Well, okay, Nakaba did explain this and I did cover this in another video, but the fairy giant hybrids are pathetically one-sided. These kids are just basically just reskins or background characters of other giants and other fairies. They don't really look like a combo, and look at what the other hybrids we got. Look at Tristan, look at Lancelot. Hybrids with both clan powers. Some drawbacks, but hey, they're hybrids and they could use both of their abilities. We haven't seen that with any of these kids. It's one-sided and it's pathetic. But there might be something else on the way. In the most recent chapter, with chapter 150, Nasiens has actually unlocks his own fairy clan abilities. What do I mean by this? Well, in chapter 149, when King's family was being completely slaughtered by the White Knight of Camelot, Nasiens was about to get hit with practically a freaking nuke when, surprise, surprise, Nasiens stopped Chastiful. Yes, Nasiens somehow controlled the Fairy King's Spirit Spear. And in the latest chapter, it is revealed that Nasiens was actually able to hear a voice. And that voice was most likely the sacred tree. And now coming to terms with who Nasiens really is, Nasiens might have actually awakened his fairy clan abilities. Because in this chapter, while King and the family are fighting against the White Knight, Nasiens is able to lend a hand and is able, for the first time, fly. This flightless fairy giant hybrid was able to fly. And it just does it so casually. Nasiens aided his father, King, in facing against the White Knight, mixing in his power mixed poison into Chastiful for one fatal attack. So it seems like Nasiens might actually be awakening the fairy clan and the giant blood in his veins now that he is aware. At least, I hope he's also going to get some giant material in there because, again, these hybrids suck. But what does that mean for Nasiens? Could he actually be more powerful than Harlequin? Maybe. Depending on how this series goes, I actually would like to see the kind of hybrid that I was expecting. A fairy giant hybrid. That just sounds, unique and cool. We could have gotten that with the other kids, but we don't. Hopefully Nakaba can rectify this with Nasiens. Maybe as the story goes on, Nasiens learns more about who they really are and maybe unlocks more abilities. From the fairy clan side, I pretty much expect Nasiens to get their own sort of spirit weapon. With all the numerous forms we got from spirit weapons, from the spirit spears to even Hellbrum's sword, even Sixus's spirit sword, Nasiens can aid in the platoon with its own amount of spirit weaponry. We got Moonlit Drip, which can heal, or Deaththorn for very deadly attacks. And the fact that Nasiens can even enchant these weapons with the various poisons just gives them all an additional edge. And now that Nasiens can fly, Nasiens can go to others quickly and fast as possible, like a very good doctor. There is yet to see any sort of giant clan abilities, but it would be cool if Nasiens could maybe summon poisonous minerals. I mean, that just sounds cool. Summoning poisonous minerals and plants, the poisonous and dark side of nature itself at Nasiens' disposal. Now that would be awesome. As it stands now, Nasiens is awakening to their true potential. Who knows? Nasiens might actually be worthy of the Fairy King's throne. Assuming that King may have to kick the bucket at some point. It's just a theory, but it's possible. Who knows? But what do you think? What kind of future does Nasiens have on the horizon? Will they become the next Fairy King, or will they just stick to being a medical doctor? This has been Dante from the Anime Underworld. Let me know what you want to see more of down in the comments.